So hello everyone, my name is Naina and I'm from the Pudhi Academy. So today we're going to continue with the chapter that is reproduction in animals. So in our last class what we've seen the reproduction, modes of reproduction. So there are two types of reproduction. So first one is sexual reproduction and then asexual reproduction. So we have started with sexual reproduction. So what is a sexual reproduction? A type of reproduction that begins from the fusion of male and female gametes, which results in the formation of a zygote. So it's a sexual reproduction. Then we have seen the male and female reproductive organs of humans. And we have also seen the fertilization process. So in today's class, we'll deal with development of embryo, viviparous and oviparous animals, how the young ones are grown into adults, and the asexual reproduction. So let's start with the development of embryo. So what we have seen is once the male and female gamete fuses, it forms a zygote, and that process is known as fertilization. So in development, the development of embryo takes place after the process of fertilization and the formation of zygote. So fertilization, it results in the formation of fertilization. It results in the formation of zygote, and which begins to develop into an embryo. So how the embryo is developed? So the zygote, it divides repeatedly to give rise to a ball of cells. So this zygote, it divides and it gives rise to a ball of cells. So these cells then begins to form group that develop into different tissues and organs of the body. This developing structure is termed as embryo. The embryo gets embedded in the wall of the uterus for further development. Now let's see from the diagram what it exactly is. So here, this is the ovary which releases the egg. And this process where the ovary releases the egg is known as ovulation. So what is ovulation? Ovulation is the process where ovary releases the egg. Process of release of egg by ovary. So ovulation is the process of release of egg by ovary. Then this egg gets fertilized. So what happens here? The sperm comes and embeds its nucleus into it. So once the fertilization takes place, it forms a zygote. So this is the zygote. So once the zygote is formed, it starts dividing. It starts dividing to form balls of cells. So this one zygote, it starts breaking into many cells, and eventually it forms a ball of cells. So this is the enlarged structure. So this ball of cells, here it is shown in a big size. So this is the ball of cells. These cells then develop further. So many such cells come together to form our organs. Organs like our stomach, kidney, brain, all these organs are made of this ball of cells. And even tissues. Tissues means our skin or inside our muscles, and everything is formed out of these cells. And later, this gives rise to embryo. So this is the embryo. So the developing of structures is termed as embryo. So once the zygote, it divides to form a ball of cells, then it forms different tissues and organs. So this process later forms an embryo. So once the embryo is formed, this is an embryo. Once this embryo is formed, it comes and sticks to the lining of uterus. So in our diagram of female reproductive part, I have shown you the uterus. Right? So this is the uterus. So here The embryo, it comes and sticks here in the uterus. Okay. So once the embryo is formed, it comes to the uterus, it gets stick there. So here, you can see it's the lining of the uterus where the embryo is stuck, and here the developing of embryo takes place. So what are the development of embryo? So the embryo continues to develop in the uterus. It gradually develops body. So once the embryo is embedded in the uterus, it starts to develop the body. Body like hands, legs. So body parts such as hands, legs, hair, eyes. So everything it starts developing here. Here it starts developing. Then the stage of the embryo in which the body parts can be identified is called fetus. So what is fetus? Fetus is where we can identify the body parts. So this is a fetus where we can identify that this is head, this is hands, legs. So the stage of embryo in which all the body parts can be identified is called fetus. When the development of the fetus is complete, so when the baby is formed completely, like it has developed all the body parts, hands, head, everything, then the mother gives birth to the baby. So this is what development of embryo. This is how development of embryo takes place. So how it develops? So the embryo. So first fertilization takes place. Fertilization, male and female gametes fuses. It fuses, it forms zygote. And this zygote further develops to form embryo. So now how this zygote forms embryo? It starts to divide. It divides and forms a ball of cells. And from ball of cells, which further divides to form organs and tissues. And this structure is called as embryo. So once embryo is done, it forms fetus. Fetus. So what is fetus? Fetus is where we can identify the body parts of the baby. So a stage where we can identify the body parts of the baby, or the baby has developed all the body parts like hands, ears, legs, head, everything. When it is developed, that particular stage is known as fetus. So this is how, and once the fetus is completely grown, like it has developed all the body parts, then baby is born. So this is how a human baby is born. Similarly, what happens? So this is an internal fertilization because all this process, it takes place inside the female body. Hence, they also undergo internal fertilization. But do they give birth to a baby? No. They don't give birth to a baby. They lay egg. Then how it is an internal fertilization? So what happens? Soon after fertilization, the zygote divides repeatedly. So there we have seen the zygote divides repeatedly to give rise to an embryo. So here also the zygote divides repeatedly and travels down the ovida. As it travels down, many protective layers are formed around it. Now you have seen the egg with the white shell. So that is the protective layer that is formed over the zygote. So this protective layer It's a hard shell formed around the developing embryo. The hen finally lays egg. The embryo takes 3 weeks to develop into a chick. So once the embryo is formed, along with the process of formation of embryo, it has a covering of various layers of protective covering, which forms a eggshell, the white color eggshell that we see. Inside that is the embryo. And then once the embryo is done, the hen lays egg. So once the egg is laid, once the egg comes out, it takes 3 weeks to develop into a chick. So for these 3 weeks, you have seen that the hen, it sits on the egg. So why it sits on the egg? To provide sufficient warmth or the heat of the or the hen body. So it provides the sufficient warmth due to which the embryo it develops into a chick, the baby hen. So placed inside the eggshell. After the chick is completely developed, it bursts open the eggshell. So once the chick is completely developed, it opens the eggshell. So you have seen that how they come out. They breaks the eggshell and they come out. So they burst open the eggshell and they come out. In animals which undergo in external fertilization, development of the embryo takes place outside the female body. So, internal fertilization, everything occurs inside the female body. External fertilization, everything occurs outside the female body. So, the development of embryo and the young ones or the eggs, everything it happens outside the female body. So, this is how the eggs are laid or how the young ones are born out of two ways. Next is viviparous and oviparous animals. So we have learned that some animals they give birth to young ones like humans, cows, and some they lay eggs like hen or the birds. Okay. Now what are these? The animals which give birth to young ones are called viviparous. They give birth to the young ones like humans. Those which lay eggs are called oviparous. So, what is viviparous and what is oviparous? So, viviparous, they give birth to young ones. Example is humans, cows, dogs. Okay, they give birth to the young ones, to babies, right? Then, oviparous, they lay eggs. Example is your hen, frog, birds. They lay eggs, right? The eggs of few animals are easy to observe because their mothers lay them outside their body. So, you know what oviparous and viviparous is? So, oviparous, they lay eggs. For example, your hen, birds, frogs, and viviparous are the ones which give birth to the young ones. So, we come under viviparous as we give birth to the young ones. Next is the development or the growth of the young ones to an adult. So how they grow? So young ones, the new individual which are born or hatched from the eggs, continue to grow till they become adults. So we, from a baby, we grow up, right? So in some animals, the young ones may look very different from the adults. So we look similar to our parents, right? But that's not the case for all. Some of them, they look different from the adults. For example, frog. Okay, so here it shows. So this is a frog. Once it lays egg, then it forms the tadpole. Tadpole or the larva. Does it look like a frog? No, it doesn't look like a frog. Then it forms the adult frog. So the young ones, they are totally different from the adult one. They look totally different from the adult one. Even the caterpillars or your butterflies, initially they are a worm, okay, a caterpillar, then they form the cocoons, and once the cocoon is hatched, a nice and beautiful butterfly comes out. Do they look like the adults? No, it doesn't look like the adults. So they're completely different. So we look exactly like our parents, but that isn't the case for all. Some they look very different from the adults. For example, is the frog, which is shown here. So these young ones, do they look like they are adult? No, they look totally different. So observe the stages of frog. So these are the stages how frog is developed. So once they lay egg, it then forms the larva, then to adult. But the larva has also stages like eggs to early tadpole. Early tadpole means is the development. This is the egg to this. This is the early tadpole. Then the late tadpole where it has the legs, and then it forms the adult. So from the egg to the adult stage, we find that there are three distinct stages. One is the egg, then the tadpole or the larva, and then the adult. So this is the egg, this is the tadpole or the larva stage. Both of this is the tadpole or the larva stage. Mhm. Early tadpole is the beginning where it starts to form the tadpole, and this is the late tadpole. That means from here now it will form the adult. So this is the adult frog. So they look totally different from each other. Don't tadpoles look so different from the adults? Yes, they do look different from the adults. The tadpoles transform into adults capable of jumping and swimming. Do these tadpoles capable of jumping and swimming? They are capable of swimming, but are they capable of jumping? No. So this frog, it is capable of both jumping and swimming. Jumping because of its legs. This tadpoles, they doesn't have legs. Here it starts growing, but it doesn't have a complete leg. The transformation of larva into an adult through a drastic change is called metamorphosis. So what is metamorphosis? It is the transformation of the larva into an adult through drastic changes. It's called metamorphosis. So here there is a drastic change. There is a big change, right? The tadpole, it doesn't look similar, but the frog, it can jump, swim. Here they can't. There is a drastic change. So this is known as metamorphosis. What about our body? Do we show metamorphosis? No. Human beings' body part is similar to those present in the adults. So what our parents have hands, legs, they can also jump, run, we can also jump on. So human beings doesn't show any metamorphosis. Hmm? So that after oviparous and viviparous, we have seen is metamorphosis. So what is metamorphosis? Drastic change larva to adult. Asexual reproduction. So till now what we have seen is sexual reproduction where both the parents are involved. That is male and female, both are involved. Now what is asexual reproduction? Asexual reproduction is where only single parent is involved. Okay. So far we have learned about the reproduction in some familiar animals. Familiar animals like frogs, birds, snakes, humans. These are familiar animals, right? But what about the very small animals like hydra and amoeba? So about hydra and amoeba you have learned in your previous class, that is in 7th standard. So these are microscopic animals. You can only observe them using a microscope. So how do they reproduce? How do those microscopic organisms reproduce? This is the hydra. So how do hydra reproduce? In each hydra, okay, maybe one or more bulges. Okay, each hydra it has one or more bulges. Bulges means something like this. It comes out of this. Okay, bulges. So these bulges are the developing new individuals and they are called as buds. Okay. So these bulges which comes out of the hydra, these are known as buds and these are the nude ones or the babies of hydra, we can say. These are the new ones or new individual which is coming out of a hydra. So, similar thing happens in the east. So similar thing it happens in east. In hydra, the new individual develops as outgrowths from a single parent. So as I said before, asexual reproduction involves only one parent, that is single parent. So only from this one hydra, this individual comes out. Here, there is no gamete fusion or there is no female and male gametes are involved. It's only one hydra where it starts to bulging out. So it comes from this hydra. This is a new individual of the hydra or the baby of hydra. So this type of reproduction in which only single parent is involved is known as asexual reproduction. So what is sexual reproduction? Sexual reproduction is where a male and female gamete fuses together. That male and female is required. But in asexual reproduction, only single parent is involved. So the process of development of an individual by the formation of buds in hydra, this type of asexual reproduction is called budding. So what is budding? So this is the process of budding where from the parent an individual is formed. So here it comes out of the hydra to form a new individual hydra. So next we have seen is asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction where only single parent is involved. So there is no male or female gamete fusion, nothing happens, only single parent. So what is the first type of asexual reproduction we have seen? That is budding. In which organism we have seen it in? In hydra. So it forms buds that comes out of parent hydra. Okay. So the parent hydra. This is the individual or the baby which comes out. So this is the budding hydra. Okay. So a bud which comes from the parent hydra. This process is known as budding. Another method of asexual reproduction is observed in the microscopic organism that is amoeba. So let us see how it happens. So you have already learned about the structure of amoeba. So what is the structure of amoeba? So this is an amoeba, which doesn't have a fixed structure or shape. It takes any shape. So this is the amoeba, which is a single cell organism. It's a single celled organism. It begins the process of reproduction by division of its nucleus into two nuclei. So how the reproduction of amoeba takes place? It starts from the division of this nucleus. This is the nucleus. So this nucleus, it divides into two. So dividing nucleus. So once the nucleus is divided, it is followed by division of its body into two, each part receiving a nucleus. So here, once the nucleus is divided into two, then their body, so this whole part, it divides. So the body also divides into two, containing one nucleus in both. Okay. Finally, two amoebas are formed. Now we have two amoeba. These are known as daughter amoebas. From a single parent, now we have got two amoebas or two daughter amoebas. Type of sexual reproduction, where reproduction in which an animal reproduces by dividing into two individuals is called binary fission. Now here what happens in amoeba? A single parent, it divides into two to form two individuals or two daughter amoeba. This process is known as binary fission. Okay. So after budding, what is the second one? Is a binary fission. Seen in amoeba. So here what happens? Parent divides into individuals. Individuals. So here the single parent, it divided into two daughter amoebas. Okay? Two individuals. So there are other methods of sexual reproduction which we will learn in higher classes. So what we have seen in today's class so far. So we have seen the development of embryo, how the embryo is developed. So how the embryo is developed, it after fertilization it forms zygote. Zygote then develops into an embryo. Then embryo, it forms, what is an embryo? It's a ball of cells which develops into different tissues and organs. So this developing structure is known as embryo. So this structure, which later develops into organs and tissues, is known as embryo. So what is ovulation? Ovulation is the process of release of egg by the ovaries. Then once the embryo is formed, it goes and attaches to the walls of the uterus. So once it attaches to the wall of the uterus, it starts developing into body parts like hands, legs, heads, eyes, everything. So the stage of embryo in which body parts can be identified is known as fetus, a stage where we can identify the body parts. Once the fetus is completely developed, the mother gives birth to the baby. Now this is what happens in humans. In case of hens, what happens? Once the embryo is developed, once the zygote is formed, it starts to divide to form the embryo. During the process of formation of embryo, it forms a protective layer over it. So a protective layer is formed. The white color eggshell that we see. Once the embryo is developed and the eggshell is formed, the hen lays egg. Okay. Once the egg is laid, it takes 3 weeks to develop the embryo into the chick. Once the chick is, once the egg is laid, the hen sits on the egg to provide it sufficient warmth, because of which the embryo develops, and later the chick comes out of the egg by bursting the shells. So this is what happens in hens. Then we have seen what are viviparous and oviparous animals. So what are viviparous and oviparous animals? Viviparous are the ones which give birth to the young ones. For example, humans, cows. Okay? And oviparous are the one which lays egg. For example, we have seen it here, hen. Then we have seen the development of young ones to the adult. So once the baby is born or the egg is hatched, it starts to grow. We look similar to our parents, but not all the animals look similar to their adult. So here In some animals, young ones may look very different from the adults. We from the birth look similar. Like there is no much changes that had occurred in our birth. We look similar. But in case of frog, here what I said. So eggs, once eggs are hatched, once they are formed, they form tadpoles or larvae. Do larvae or tadpole look similar to the adult one? There is a drastic change. So this drastic change is known as metamorphosis, where the transformation of larva into adult takes place in a drastic form. So this tadpoles, they doesn't look like the adult form. This is metamorphosis. Then we have seen what is asexual reproduction. This asexual reproduction where only single parent is involved. We have seen two types of reproduction. One is budding, another one is binary fission. So budding, it takes place in hydra where single parent hydra, it starts to bud. Something like this bulges out of the body of hydra, which later forms the individual or the baby of hydra. Next is amoeba, where the parent amoeba divides to form two daughter amoeba. And this process is known as binary fission. So, in this chapter, you may ask to distinguish between viviparous and oviparous. Write the difference between viviparous and oviparous, or write a difference between asexual and sexual reproduction. Then the development of an embryo, how an embryo develops. What is metamorphosis? So all these kinds of questions will be asked. So thank you for watching my video. Please do share, please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.